Alright, so far in this topic we've learned how to collect data, how to analyze them, how to display them in different ways, and we come to comparing data in this skill. So when we compare data, we generally just compare them in terms of their center, so where the center of the data is, and how spread out the data is. So we're looking at center and spread when we're comparing data. When we're comparing center, we're looking at either the mean, which is the average of all the data values that you have, or the median, which is the middle number of your data. And when we're comparing spread, so how spread out the data is, we're looking at range, so the maximum number take away the minimum number, so where does it start and where does it end, or the IQR, which is sort of the middle 50% of the data. Now, I put this table here, which I'm going to recommend that you add to your bound reference or add it to your booklet if that's what you're using for your bound reference. This little table tells you which measure of center to use for which scenario. So let's say you have a bunch of data and you know the data is symmetric. So when you have like a graph, it's going to sort of form this formation and it has no outliers. You're really lucky, which this will happen very rarely. But if this happens, you can use any measure of center and spread. So you can use any of these four. So we've got the mean, median for center, and range and IQR for spread. You can use anything you like. But more often you'll see data that has some skewness. So it's either positively or negatively skewed, or there are outliers in your data. So when this happens, and this is really important, when this happens, you need to use the median for center and you need to use the IQR for spread. And the reason for this is that they eliminate outliers. So for example, if we have a data here that's like that, and we have like all our data points here, so let's say this is a dot plot, it's like that, and we have like a couple of outliers here. If we do mean for center, we are counting these as well when we average out, so our data is not going to be as accurate. Whereas if we just do median, we're going to end up somewhere sort of here, which is more accurate measure of the data. And same for range. If we do range, like this is the minimum value and this is the maximum value, it seems like we have a very large spread in our data, where in fact we don't. We just have this spread and these are outliers. So if we just do IQR, which is going to be somewhere around here, that's going to represent our data a lot better. So it's really important, the things I've highlighted here, that you do this. But you might have noticed that in either cases, you can use the median in this case or this case, and you can use IQR in this case and this case. So you might as well always use median or IQR no matter what your data looks like. But I'm gonna give you an example for both anyways. So for this one, it's a really good example of having symmetrical data. You see, this is basically a symmetric spread for, we've got test A and test B here. And even for test B, you can see this is basically a symmetric data. So for this one, you can really use anything to compare the center and the spread. And just for the sake of it, we're going to use mean for center because we can. It's not recommended. We just use median all the time. Actually, I'm changing now. And for spread, we are going to use range. And then if I were to do the mean, I'll have to add up all of these numbers and then divide by how many there are. Now that seems a lot harder than doing the median. Median will be just like counting where the median is and then just using that number. So I'm gonna change my mind and use median, because you can always use median, and that's good. And for this one, we can either use range or IQR. Either is fine. I should write mean is also fine here as well. But I'm going to choose the range for this one, just because it's going to be easier to figure out. To do IQR, you have to do Q3 minus Q1. So you have to find Q3 and Q1 as well, which is more work than just doing range, which was maximum minus the minimum. Those numbers are way more obvious. Like, these are the maximum values, these are the minimum values for each test. So let's do those. So to do the median, if you were to do it by hand, you'll first know how many data values you have. So you simply just count them, 1, 2, and then 4 here. So you're up to 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So the number for here is 18, and let's just do how many there are over here as well. So we've got 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So 18 here as well. Now we know if there's 18 for each one, we can use our median formula, which is m plus 1 divided by 2. So that's going to be 19 divided by 2, which is going to be 9.5. And that's going to be the same on both sides because they both have 18. 5. So that's the position, that's the location of your median. So then you just go, make sure you're counting this way, because we're going lower and this is higher. Like, this is 33, whereas this is 36. So we want to go the right way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is here. So it's between these two numbers, and they're both 57. So the number between 57 and 57 is 57. So the median for this one is 57. And for this, the other side, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's your 9th, and that's your 10th. So your 9th number is 72, and your 10th number is 74. Halfway between those two is 73. So the median here is 73. Okay, and then we'll do range now. Range is a lot quicker. And again, we can use range here because data is symmetric. If it was not symmetric or it had outliers, we'll have to use IQR. So range here is just lowest and the highest, and take them away. So 79 minus 33 is the range. So range is 79 minus 33. So that's going to be 66. Nope, 46. And then this one, the range is the highest minus the lowest. So that's 80, take away 58, and that's going to be 22. So all the hard work is done. Now we need to just compare them. So we want to write a couple of sentences just summarizing our data. So have a go at doing that by yourself, and pause the video now and come back to the video for the answer. Pause now. Alright, so here's what I've written. I did a very simple one, and for this one it was quite obvious when it said tests and scores, so you didn't really have to write a full sentence about just the context of the data. So all you really had to do was compare the center. So comparing comes from, you know, saying what's higher, what's lower, that sort of stuff. So you want to be saying that, as well as giving the actual data to back up your what you're saying. So I just wrote the median score, so we're comparing center. So this is where we compare the center of test B was higher at 73 than test 8 at at 57. And the range, obviously this is where we compare the spread. For test A was higher at 46.10, test B at 22. So that's all you had to do. I'm going to skip over this one for a second and go straight to this one. And just looking at the question, we have a parallel box plot. This is really good when we're comparing data because it gives us so much information like QA, Q1, Q2, Q3, outliers, like it's all there, minimum, maximum. So box plots are great. So this is about the distribution of pulse rates in beats per minute of group of students, female and male students. So, and you're asked to write a report comparing these distribution in terms of center, spread, and outliers. So if this was a test, this will be worth 3 marks. And as you would have guessed, they come from 1 center, 1 spread, 1 outlier. So you want to mention those 3 things in your report. So have a go at writing the report yourself first and come back to the video. Okay, so here's what I've written. I've given this one some context. So I've set the data. Oh, I'm going to use the highlighter. This bit is the context, including what it was about and what units were used. So I think for this one, including the units is necessary, unlike the first one where it was just test scores, like we know what test units for test scores are, whereas this one is not as obvious. So that's that bit there gives you the context, and then now we want to compare the center. So we got a mark there for comparing with data, and we also compare spread by using the IQR and giving the data. And lastly, we mention outliers here as well. So those are the 3 marks. However, if this is the answer that you write, you probably only get 2. You're missing one important thing here. See if you can figure it out. The thing that you're missing, and it was the comparing part of the sentences that were written, which was that we want to write like it was higher or lower, so we want to be adding those. So the IQR for female students pulse rate was higher at 15 than 10 for male students. So we want to be putting in those words where we're comparing as well. And this last one, it's very similar. It's sort of like the combination of this question and this question. So you can hopefully do that yourself. The trouble here might be doing the back-to-back stem and leak plot. Make sure you have a key. Make sure to have good stem here that's shared between shop A and shop B. And then lastly, you need to just write the comparison. So pause the video, have a go, and come back for the answers. Alright, so hopefully the process that you have followed to construct this stem and leak plot is similar to mine. So what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at, where does it start and where does it end? And where does it start and where does it end? And that's going to determine the stem part of the stem and leak plot. So I know that it's going to be 1 digit at the start. So I'm going to write a 0 here. And then it's going to go up to 20 something. So I can do 1. But then I'm also noticing that there's a lot of 10s here. And then a lot of 20s here. So it might be a bit hard to fit all that in. And if that's the case, did you know that you can do 2 1s here and sort of put the first half here and first half the rest there? So it might not be needed for this one. So if you just did 1 1, that's fine, but just for the sake of it, I'll show you how to do 2 1s as well, and then I'll write 20 here. So for shop A, we've got 0, 3, and then we got 12, 12, 13, 14, 14s. So you can do 12, 12, 13, 14, 14. I might just leave it there, and for the next one you can write these two. So in this way, it's just a little bit neater, but as actually for this one, because the data is really not that big, it's most likely not necessary, so we'll just do it like this. And just follow this process for the rest of them, just make sure you don't miss any data. Okay, so this is what your final product should look like. And then the next question says compare the data in terms of center and spread, and then draw a conclusion based on your comparison. So again, the context of the data is it's a shop, 2 jeans shops, and then it's about daily sales in each shop. So to decide which measure of center and spread to use, you'll need to determine if there are any outliers or if they're skewed data. So for stem and leaf plot, I always sort of like to do an outline for each part of the stem and leaf and sort of see what shape it takes. So it's pretty clear they're both skewed. So for this one, you will have to use the median for center and IQR for the spread. Okay, so center has to be median and spread has to be IQR. So have a go at writing the report. Should be similar to this one here, and then come back for the answer. Alright, so something along the lines of this is what you came up with, hopefully. So we talked about the context of the data briefly here, and then to compare the center, we are using the median because the data is skewed, and we're using words that compare. So shop A has a higher median at 18 jeans per day compared to 9.5 for shop B. And then for spread, we're using IQR again for this skewed data, and we're saying it's higher than shop B at 7. So, and then finally we have the conclusion. So you just need to describe what the median being higher means and what IQR being higher means. So we can say that shop A sell more jeans per day, so that comes from median sales being higher. But having the higher IQR means that they have more spread out in their daily sales. So some days they sell less, some days they sell a lot more. So you can say even though the shop B sells less overall, they are more consistent. Their IQR is lower.